Hello, my name is Ben Julia with Profile Magazine, and today I am excited to sit down with our cover star and Senior Director of Tax at Patagonia, Shelley Chase. Shelley recently sat down with us for Profile's strategy issue, and today we'd like to continue that conversation. So thank you very much for joining us again here, Shelley. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ben. It's good to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll kind of hop right into it then. For the first question we have, in your profile article, you said that traveling to meet Patagonia's international teams has been one of the greatest things in your career, provided some amazing personal growth for you. These days, however, there are critics who argue that travel should only take place when necessary, citing concerns for the environment and things like that. So, knowing this, what do you think traveling for business should look like moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that it should only happen when it's necessary. I just think that it happens to be necessary. One of the things we all learned from the pandemic was how to do this, right? How to meet on a video platform, how to collaborate, how to share screens. And I think it's great. It's really moved business forward. But I don't think it's a substitute for being live and in person in terms of relationship building and team building. I also just think, in terms of, say, Patagonia's sales meeting that we often have, seeing something on screen is not the same as touching that jacket or product, or touring a facility, or just making that connection. So I think travel will probably be pared down a little bit to what is necessary. But I think that some travel and some in-person relationships is always going to be necessary. As great as this is, it just does not. I would much rather be seeing you in person, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. There's not really much that replaces that feeling of being face to face with somebody and the connection you can build that isn't just it's just not quite as possible through a screen or what that distance looks like. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. All right, great. Well, the next question here is that so Patagonia has a private foundation that's focused on environmentally conscious messaging. So you said your job is to support the environmental team's creative thinking and still keep the company compliant, right, in your role. So how do you partner with the company's foundation arm, and what does your role entail, kind of in that way?
Yeah, so we have a whole team that comes up with environmental strategies and reviews and approves grants, and then we have a whole support team. There's legal, accounting, and tax. And so what we do, right? The grants team comes up with strategies and grants, and when Patagonia gives, we like to give to kind of small grassroots organizations,
Hmm.
and a lot of times they're not super sophisticated. Sometimes they're not even sure if they have a legal entity or what the form of that legal entity is. So we help them navigate. Like, here we have this great idea. Here's some people we want to give money to, but they're not even an organization. Like, they need to find a fiscal sponsor, or they need to. They're an indigenous people group. Is that okay to give to? So we help them navigate a lot of those kinds of issues. The other thing is that Patagonia likes to support legislation that is environmentally conscious. And so there are a lot of specific rules in the tax exempt world about what you can and can't support.
Hmm.
So we help our teams just make sure that, hey, if this is something that we want to do, can we do it in a tax exempt entity? Do we need to do it in the for profit entity? Is it something that we want to do? And we just recognize that it's maybe not tax deductible, but it's still something we want to do.
Hmm.
So it's our grants teams, and honestly these grassroots organizations that we support, they're amazingly creative, out of the box thinkers, and they're coming up with solutions all the time that don't necessarily fit into regs,
Hmm.
exactly. So
Yeah.
we just have to work with them, and try and support them, and be able to get money in the hands of the organizations that are doing the good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you kind of allude to it. Like, there's a lot to navigate in all those situations, but at the end of the day, the important part is supporting those organizations or those causes that you find endearing or important to Patagonia and the greater scheme of everything, right? So I think that
Yeah.
that's really great that you're able to kind of use your role that maybe not wouldn't necessarily be seen as something that's going to be that involved with it to really help make that stuff happen. on a
Yeah.
larger scale, which is great. And so, kind of saying that, is there anything like personally that you find, or like, I guess, why is this part of your role so fulfilling personally for you?
Oh, well, Patagonia's mission statement is that we're in business to save our home planet. And
Hmm.
I 100% agree. The climate crisis is one of the biggest, dangers that we're facing in our world's future.
Hmm.
So, I bring my skills, tax skills, to the table to help further that mission that I personally support. And I think that's what everyone has to do, right? Everyone has their own set of skills, and they're all important, and all can really help that mission.
Hmm.
So Patagonia actually has a website. It's called Patagonia Action Works, and people can go there, and there's a website that matches your skills with organizations in your area that need those skills.
Oh, wow.
So I think that everybody, like you say, I'm a tax accountant, and that's not necessarily what you think of as someone who's fighting the environmental crisis. But
Hmm.
really, everybody's skills are helpful and can be used. So I encourage everyone to go out and try and find an organization where they can help. Because yeah, it does feel great.
Yeah. No, and that's awesome too. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that is something that, a lot of times people don't know how to help or where to get started. So having a platform where they can go to, and a lot of times it's a lot easier than someone might think to really make a big impact. And especially when we're talking about environmental issues and, all of the climate stuff that's going on, it's really important. And so it's great to get more and more people who can get involved, the better. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, great. Well, the last question we have here, is kind of around sustainability. So, why is sustainability experience so important for tax professionals to have? And from your perspective, where can they start if they want to acquire that skill set, essentially?
Yeah, well, ESG, I think is, and maybe this is only because I'm paying attention to it, but it seems like it's the hottest topic out there in business news, except for
Hmm.
maybe the proposed tax legislation. But
Yeah.
it really is something, that all stakeholders, customers, employees, shareholders are all demanding that corporations show more responsibility. And the environment is a big part of that, as well as social behaviors for the corporation. And tax is just one piece of that. So I think we all need to be prepared to support the environmental piece of that. For me, from the tax perspective, part of that is supporting like changes in our supply chain. And
Hmm.
does that mean corporate restructuring? And what are the tax impacts of that? A lot of that is cross border, taking advantage of credits and incentives that incentivize good corporate behavior.
Hmm.
That's a piece of it from a tax perspective. And then finally, transparency is a big part of that ESG, movement right now. And so making sure from a tax perspective that you're using responsible tax practices, and, not having your company show up in the news as a bad corporate taxpayer,
Hmm.
and having some transparency around that. I think that's a big piece of what the tax role is in ESG as a whole.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think too, especially where, a company like Patagonia that is so forward thinking in a lot of these areas around environmental help and environmental change and things like that. It sounds like obviously you're dealing with a lot of these things, which is great and making that impact. The tax rule isn't always something you think of as having that impact as well. So that's why I love highlighting that. And I think it's something that we'd love to do a profile as well, is just highlighting the ways that just because you're in a specific role doesn't, it's much more about being a greater part of the bigger company, the bigger picture, all of those things. And stuff like, sustainability, environmental awareness goes a long way these days as well, which is really great. So awesome to hear that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm attending webcasts and reading articles on these topics. I mean, it really is just the most important thing that I'm hearing about right now. And so, people
Mhm.
that want to learn about it, I think there's all kinds of opportunities and all kinds of information out there, and you just kind of have to dive in. It's sort of new. It's sort
Mhm.
of new, but that's what makes it exciting. And if
Yeah.
you're honing your skills there, it just makes you all that much better and marketable in your position.
No, I definitely agree. So, well, this has been awesome. Again, really appreciate your time, your insights. These responses have been great, and there's a lot of nice information to take out of this, and great perspectives that you've been able to bring to the table. So, thanks very much for your time today, Shelley. Really appreciate that, and have a great rest of your day and take care.
All right, thanks, Ben. It was great being here.
Yep. Bye.
Bye bye.